So my dear friends, I'm very happy to meet you once again on the screen and to give you a little insights into the scripture readings of these days and also the other events that are taking place in our Archdiocese. Pastoral season is a very happy season. I'm sure many of you are in the holidays now, a little at home, a little of prayer, a little of enjoyment, and surely the good things that are associated with holidays. Our priests also are in retreat. Some of them are in retreat. Some of them may have visited your houses already and blessed the houses. The others, the next week also we have a retreat. Another group goes for retreat, and then perhaps they will be at home and attend to your needs. As regards the message of this week, it's once again a beautiful message. You know, what we call the Emmaus journey of Jesus, chapter 24 of Luke. Actually, for me, it's one of the most endearing gospel passages that makes us feel at home that Jesus always comes to stay with us. You know perhaps the scene or the scenario. It's soon after the resurrection of Jesus. The disciples are dispersed, and two of them we find in this gospel moving away from Jerusalem, meaning to say our story of Jerusalem, our story with Jesus is over. Now let's get along. Let's get with the rest of the things that perhaps we should have worried about. But now, since we followed Jesus and it's a big disappointment for us, they are moving away. That's the gospel, and Jesus meets the disciples who are talking on the way about everything that has happened to him, and he interprets them and of course stays with them, and the Eucharist that is celebrated with them. As I said in my last week's reflection, Jesus goes in search of his disciples. He doesn't wait for them to come. Though it's they who have faltered and defaulted, it's Jesus who goes after them. Very strange. Jesus could have said, they are the ones who have moved away. They are the ones who have betrayed me. Let them come and say sorry to me. Let them come and ask forgiveness. Maybe I will give forgiveness. No. Jesus is the other way about. He doesn't wait for them to ask for forgiveness. He goes after them. He goes in search of them. As we see in today's gospel, last week also St. Thomas, he went in search of him. Rather, he appeared to him the second time, though it was not necessary perhaps for Jesus to come again. He had met all the disciples, but because of Thomas, he comes back again. Next week, we have another beautiful gospel where Jesus goes in search, and two of the disciples are found on the seashore. Once again, back to fishing, back to our old life, back to our routine humdrum life, as it were. Jesus doesn't matter anything for them because they have lost faith. Today's gospel is a very special one. I say three small things about today's gospel, today's readings. The first of all, life is a journey. You know, Christian faith is a journey. It's a journey of faith by the people who are faithful to God. It's a beautiful journey. And it's this journey of our life. You know, journey starts from one place, it ends up in another place. And in between the walking, as it is a beautiful experience. Some of us who go for long walks. Some of us perhaps sometimes we walk on pilgrimages. It's beautiful with so many people carrying your bags, carrying your backpacks. And perhaps some children are there, some old people are behind. And all of us are in a journey. You know, that symbol or the icon of the synodality was a beautiful picture, wherein a small procession is created there, and this procession is led by whom? You know, small children. I suppose you saw it very closely. Behind are the couples or the parents. Then there are some old people. Then there are also some on the wheelchair. And fortunately, the bishop or the archbishop is somewhere behind. He's not in the front to lead the procession as such at all times. That's the journey of life. And we see that the two disciples, one is called Cleophas, the other's name is not mentioned, and tradition says it could have been Peter. And so these two disciples are going on a journey. the most beautiful thing of this journey is it's going and it's coming back. It's going and coming back. While they are going, it's considered as downhill, because Jerusalem to Emmaus, Jerusalem is on top and Emmaus is little down and therefore going down. Which means coming up is climbing up. Perhaps at the end of this reflection, I might even ask you, why did the disciples have to travel back on the same day? They're also climbing. It was a tiring journey for them to go and to come back, climbing up from Emmaus to Jerusalem. Why was it needed? It was needed. First of all, when they are going, they are so discouraged. And they are talking among themselves, what a stupid thing that we did. We gave up all our works and followed that man called Jesus. And now he is dead. He didn't defend himself when he was dying. He was killed like a rogue, like a brigand, and none of us could help it. And chapter is over. And Jesus slowly goes closer to them. He overhears their conversation, asks them, what things are you talking about? And they look at him as if he's a strange creature and says, you don't know what has happened in these days in Jerusalem. How a man called Jesus, he claimed himself to be Savior. He did so many miracles, he did good teachings, but then he was killed and everything is over. And not only that, there are some ladies from our group who have said that he's supposed to have been risen. Big stories, these women's stories. And Jesus enters them, explains every bit from the prophets, from the books, the Old Testament books and the other inspirational speech that he gives to them, and say that everything was in place. That Jesus should have come on the earth, that Jesus should have proclaimed, that Jesus should have suffered, that Jesus should have died and rose again. Everything is in place. Nothing is extra, nothing is less. And they are surprised. At one moment, of course, they have not recognized it as Jesus. At one moment when they are going forward, Jesus, perhaps they came at a crossroad and Jesus pretends to go to the other road, whereas Emmaus is in the other side of the road. And Jesus pretends to go that side. They said, no, please follow us. Please come with us. Come with us. Rather, the words are, stay with us, Lord. Stay with us. And that is what we all ask. Life's journey is very tedious. Sometimes when you make a journey, you have a lot of backpacks. Perhaps in the beginning you can run a little, but slowly you find the weight of it. If you imagine those scenes of our COVID, after COVID, when the migrants were returning with so many bags, with so many distance. I'm sure they took too many bags with them, but when they reached, they must have dropped many of them on the way. Our journeys are like that. And if there is someone who can lighten our burden, it surely becomes much more lighter. And Jesus comes to lighten the burden of the disciples. And when they say to him, stay with us, there can't be a more beautiful moment than to have Jesus to stay with you. To stay with you. And so this is my second point, to stay with Jesus, or rather to call Jesus to stay with you. And it's interesting to see how things change, how our perspectives change. The same things that we have been seeing perhaps changes a lot, because we find the meaning. Why perhaps in my life I underwent that humiliation? Why in my life that was that loss? Perhaps I lost a job. Why in my life I made a fool of myself and I lost perhaps the prestige, pride of my family? Why perhaps I had to have that fight and I lost my face? Why did I have to have that sickness and perhaps that so many other sufferings? Why do we have still sort of no exchange in our family? There are so many things. But God gives meaning to every one of them. Some of them even, I would say, bad ones. God makes use of even our sins sometimes. The sins make us very humble. Perhaps sometimes God wants to make us humble and allow us to fall into certain sins so that we can realize how deep we are, so that we can look up to God to make us rise again. Stay with us, Lord. When the Lord stays with us, there's a lot of meaning to everything of our life. And thirdly, we see that the final moments of this episode are that Jesus stays with them, and when he breaks the bread, that's the sign and symbol of Eucharist, they recognize him fully. Then he disappears. He is recognized at the breaking of the bread, the meaning of the Eucharist for us. The Eucharist is the summit and the climax of all our activity. Even our spiritual activity, there cannot be anything greater than the Eucharist. St. Augustine rightly says, the Church makes Eucharist and the Eucharist makes the Church. And so, at the Eucharist, perhaps everything falls in line. Everything falls in line, that the bread that we offer, as I said to you at the Lenten time, the bread is a sign and symbol of that hard bread that the Israelites ate when they were in Egyptians. They were bonded labor or slaves of the Egyptians. Bread was thrown to them like the dogs. That's a sign of our defeat, sign of our suffering, the bread part. And the wine, or what we call the grape juice, as it were, is the sign of victory. For the Israelites, it's a sign of victory. They know every cup, every tournament has got a cup, and they raise the cup, they raise the toast, we say, and for that they use the wine, meaning to say it's a sign of victory. So therefore, we have on the one side the suffering, the death of Christ, on the other hand the resurrection of Christ, which is the Eucharist for us, and that sums up our whole life. One Eucharist celebrated and participated well, perhaps can be a fullness of life. Fullness of life. There are so many saints, they just waited for one Eucharist, and the one Eucharist fulfilled them, just as we see in today's Gospel, that the disciples are fulfilled. They are so happy. They perhaps, first they didn't believe Jesus when they saw him, but now they believe many things when they don't see him. Like St. Thomas said in the last week, to Thomas it was said, "Blessed are you because you see and believe, but blessed are those who do not see yet believe." And their disciples believed. The last, as I said, I keep it last, what we call the return journey. The return journey from Emmaus. They are making the same return journey on the same day. Someone may say it's stupid. You went all the way 11 kilometers away to Emmaus. You could have stayed there a few days, and after some relaxation you could have come back. Why did you have to come back immediately? Because the disciples that Jesus met in the morning are different. The disciples that participated in the final Eucharist in the end are different. The same persons with different dispositions, different heart. What has happened to those who are returning now? But the same two disciples say they are full of fervor, full of faith, to say that we will go back and tell my brothers and sisters and all the people that we have met Jesus, we have experienced him, and we have had Eucharist, rather, he broke the bread for us. So this is the second journey, is an upward journey. It's much more difficult than the downward journey that they made in the morning. And the same evening they walked back 11 kilometers. Perhaps they must have taken much more time, but joyfully, because they have met Jesus. And now they want to proclaim to the world that they have met Jesus. They have become a man of faith. And therefore, journey to Emmaus, downward journey, and the upward return journey to Jerusalem to proclaim is something great of these disciples, and that is what we ask for today. Our life is also a journey. Our faith is a journey. Perhaps some of us are still making that journey from Jerusalem to Emmaus very discouraged, very despondent. Some perhaps don't know what is happening in their life. There's nothing seems to be good in our life. And that's the time we invite Jesus, come and stay with us, Lord. Stay with us. Because you can interpret things that are happening in our life, not only the good things, but even the bad things, even the difficult things, even the impossible things. You can give us a separate and a special meaning. And when we celebrate the Eucharist, we complete this journey so that we are ready, like the disciples, to go and proclaim the risen Christ to the others. My dear friends, I take you to, as I said last week, one of our highest prelates of India, perhaps of the world also, Cardinal Oswald Gracious, came to Bangalore this week and he stayed 2 days in our house. As I said last time, he came for a celebration of our Mount Carmel College that was completing the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, and Cardinal was invited for it and he obliged them. But that was just a 1 or 2 hours program, but because of his flight that was not able to, but he came on the previous day, he stayed the next day. And we were so happy to have him, and he also relaxed. He told me he relaxed very well in our bishop's house. Of course, the Bangalore climate is not as bad as the Bombay or the southern or the northern India climate. It's much better. And besides, Cardinal, since he was free, he said, can I go around a little and see? And so the next day, that's the day on the 18th, we took Cardinal first of all to the old age fathers, and the fathers were so happy, and he himself remembered some of the fathers or their relatives who are priests in Bombay, and he wished them, and the fathers also were so happy to see that they could see Cardinal and talk to him and receive his blessing. Cardinal also visited our what we call the night shelter. The night shelter of our Archdiocese is a small house, but it is full of meaning for us, that in spite of our hustle and bustle, that we can give shelter to some people in our own Archbishop's house. As some of you have seen it, it's on the other side, opening on the roadside of what's called the Nandi Durga Road, and basically they are not coming inside, or rather they don't disturb us much, but they stay there. Many of them, about 24 of them are there. They come at night. They are mostly working type, but very poor. They can't afford a hotel room, or perhaps even they don't have any relatives, and most of them were sleeping on the roads or sleeping in the station, something like that. And since our Dream India network has taken up this mission of gathering these people who have no place to sleep properly, they were brought to our shelter and they are there. So Cardinal was very happy to see them. Some of them could speak, Cardinal could speak in Hindi to them, and they inquired about certain things about Bombay, and Cardinal also said about some places in Bombay and some things that are done, and they were so happy, so grateful to Cardinal that the church is providing a place like this to them. Another memorable visit or other experience was of our children. These days we are having the Asha Trust is having series of camps or groups of children are brought here. The 8th, 9th, 10th children, the PUC children, the college children, and most of them we have helped them through Asha for their studies from the beginning. And so these camps of 3 or 4 days are brought together to give them certain skills in those subjects so that they can study well, and also some spirituality, some what we call group dynamics, so that they can mix each other. They are coming from different parts of the Bangalore, from Ramnagar, Chikballapur, from KGF, from the city, but like brothers and sisters, beautifully enjoying them. These children were very lucky. When Cardinal was returning from the night shelter, the children were ready. They were sitting like the disciples all round, and beautifully they enacted 1 or 2 songs and dances, asked Cardinal also some questions, and Cardinal is most comfortable with the children and the children's group, and he blessed them. We also had sort of a meeting of our staff with Cardinal, and our staff were very happy to meet them once, perhaps in different groups. And the Cardinal also inquired about some of their families, some of their work, some of our offices, the finance office, the education office, the Palana Bhavan. He was of all praise of Palana Bhavan because Cardinal had come earlier for what we call the synodal meeting, and he has known what is the activities of our Palana Bhavan also. Cardinal is very happy. In the end, Cardinal also released what we call the ritual book for the ordination of deacons, priests and bishops. This book that was prepared by the Liturgy Commission and was brought to us by the Deputy Secretary of the CCBI, Father Stephen Alantara brought it, and it was released to the public. And there were so many small things that happened, and of course among us, Cardinal was most relaxed for 2 days. He told me, I slept very well. It's always the case of bishops and priests. We can't sleep well in our own place, but when we go out, we snore aloud because we are at peace there, not much disturbance. I think that must have been for Cardinal also. And he was very happy to meet also some people from our Archdiocese. They came and met him. The sisters came and met him. I invited the Cardinal once again. I said, when you are tired, please come here. We will not disturb you. You can take full rest in our house. Thank you, Cardinal Gracious, for your generosity, for your graciousness of accepting our invitation and staying with us for 2 days. I now speak to you about Bible lessons and catechism classes in schools. I have made this point in my circular of this month. And the point is like this. We have many Christian schools. The diocese runs about 100 schools. The religious, especially the different congregations, have hundreds of schools. I think we might be having something like 500 or more Christian educational institutions in Bangalore. We are all called Christian institutions. We are categorized as minority institutions. And one of the characteristics of minority religious institutions is there is something of their religion, there's something of the religious practice that is there. It's not just the name. Otherwise, sometimes some other non-Christians also take St. Agnes Convent, they call it, sometimes some other convent they call it, because the word convent attracts them and says that it's a good education institution. But when we call it a religious institution, it means much more than just a name. It means that this particular school has got an ethos of Christian religion, a little of Christian teaching, a little of the ambience that is Christian, and of course the management is also Christian. One of the things that we are missing in our schools these days is what we call the religious instruction, or catechism, or Bible study, whatever you want to call it. Most of us are so much geared to making the schools excellent and avoiding or perhaps escaping from the criticism of the people that we are not focused on a Catholic, we are not focused on our religious, we are not focused on our this one. We want to be so open and generous that absolutely in some of our schools there is no catechism at all. There is no religious instruction at all. And we are so shy, perhaps even scared also, in the present circumstances of what we call the laws and regulations that are coming. Even this anti-conversion law, which says that we cannot proclaim Christ in the schools or in public places, in this thing, etc. But I think it's going to another extreme. Another extreme. It's as good as telling Jesus, we don't know you. We want perhaps some of your values of truth and honesty and justice. Okay, these are common values. These are values not only for Christians, they are also values of respected Hindus and Muslims. They are also values of our constitution, our constitutional values. Sometimes we see that they are like gospel values, that is there. But then, are you shy of mentioning the name of Jesus? Are you shy of teaching the children a little of catechism and Bible? Perhaps yes. And a day may come when the government and the public will say there is no difference between your school and the other schools that are run. Absolutely, there is nothing in your school to say and claim that you are Christian except perhaps one picture there, one flag there, one cross here. That anyone can do. Today in our films, if you find it, there are people also wearing crosses for all types of characters. That doesn't mean they are Christian. Perhaps it may come to that. So therefore, I have given a solution in my circular of this month. And my solution is, can we have a 15 or 10-minute instruction to the children in every school of ours? Call it catechism, call it Bible study, call it a devotional practice. And perhaps one quotation from the Bible. Smile, perhaps give till it pains, or whatsoever you do to the least of my brothers, one small quotation which is read out and explained in 2 minutes. And then perhaps if we can give a small pictures for the children, of the different classes. Of course, we'll have to divide the children also in different sections, and there's someone who could make a small syllabus for the whole year, telling the children the Bible, a little of Catechism, a little of prayer, and disperse. Maximum, I say, 10 to 15 minutes. To tell you, concurrently, the government itself is planning to bring out what's called a moral science, or what they call it, morning dhyana session, for which a committee is appointed in 6 members, and one of them is also a Christian. And this committee is going to give a dhyana and perhaps some teachings of Bhagavad Gita, some teachings of Bible, some maybe, I do not know, because the committee has to make it. And this is supposed to be 10 minutes before the assembly or during the assembly, where the children are also taught to keep silence, etc. Which means the government seems to be having better plan than us to introduce what we call the religious instruction. But we, managing the religious institutions, it's a prime duty to show that it is the fundamental for us to teach Catechism, a Bible study, to Catholic children. I am not asking the other children to ever come close to any of our classes that are conducting religious instruction or Bible or anything like that. One problem is brought: when to have it. Because the government forbids to have religion or Bible class during the time of the what we call the time of the classes. For example, the periods are divided for maths, science, English, and nowhere can we insert this religious instruction or Bible study in a short way. Perhaps some may say that we will take the moral science class and use it for Catechism. It's not allowed. The government would be strict to say that all the children, even the Catholic children, have to attend the moral science that government prescribes to everybody. Someone may say that can we have it before the classes, 15 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes can we have it. Some may say can we have it after the classes, when all the classes are over. Perhaps I think both the times it might be little inconvenient as far as my thinking goes, because when the buses and the transport comes from different places, it's a distractive type of this one, and people cannot come earlier. And the school, when it gets over, the people also cannot wait, the children cannot wait, the buses will not wait, the rickshaws will not wait for them. Could we try to fit in at our midday break, which can be extended or perhaps not extended, adapt it in such a way for 10-15 minutes, where the Catholic children are called to a particular place or particular classes. When the children have got out, all the other children have got out, perhaps the same classrooms we can make use of for 10 minutes, so that the teacher, if she is motivated, that she can teach a prayer to the children. But this would be a sign and symbol of our, first of all, holding on to religion. Secondly, it would also be sowing into the children the principles of Christianity, of Bible to them. I'm not saying it, don't make it a boring class, but make it a lively class of 15 minutes, 10 minutes, one prayer, one song. That would be enough for the children to refresh them and to go and tell their parents that we prayed for you. We prayed for the sun, moon, environment. We prayed for our studies. And the quotation today was this small quotation. Perhaps they can learn it by heart and take it to the children, take it to their homes also. Perhaps some who are experts among us would make modules, small modules for, I don't say 365 days, perhaps 200 days of the whole year, so that every day the school takes up one particular thing. I am very much particular about this because we can understand the way the education is going. Some say it's progressing. Maybe it's even regressing. Someone made a small statement the other day. The more progressed and developed that we are, that we think are, the more depraved, and perhaps we are also becoming more and more sluggish, more and more critical, more and more anti-religious. So therefore, my dear friends, and especially our religious instructors, the heads of our institutions, we have about 500 institutions, kindly think seriously about it and come with a plan in the next 1st of June onwards, so that in the whole year, every day we can take a 10-minute class for the children on Catechism or Bible study. I would be happy if it could have been prolonged, but I can understand your difficulties and at the same time not inconveniencing the other students or the other timetable, etc. Try to make it. But what is more important is the spirit and the heart that you want to do it. Like the apostles in the Emmaus, the moment their hearts were burning when they heard Jesus, they couldn't stay quiet. They could have said, we are so tired, we'll see tomorrow morning, we'll try to go back. Or perhaps after 2 days we can take, we are so tired, coming back 11 kilometers, we can go slowly. No, their life was burning. Their hearts were burning. This is what our religious teachers, our religious staff, all our institutions should have. And I am sure that you will try to do it. There's another related topic that I'm going to speak to you. That's giving children Bibles and Bible-based books as gifts. Giving children Bibles and Bible-based books as gifts. I've seen in many occasions, I think last week I was there for a confirmation program where of course the children were 11, 12, 13, 14. They were given a thick Bible. I understand. Bible is the best book that we can take as a gift. But then we have to see the understanding, the IQ of the children also. According to their capacity, the book also becomes useful. Verses I have seen in one of the First Communion children's, all of them were gifts. They were also given such a thick Bible. I was feeling bad. They could not even carry the Bible properly. And many in our houses, perhaps there are so many gifts given, so many times bought. Sometimes I saw in one house a heap of Bibles kept there. I'm sure none of them were opened and read any time. So what I'm suggesting is, perhaps we can give other gifts to children which are almost closer to Bible books. For example, there is something called UCAT Bible, the Youth Bible. I can't say that a separate Bible was written for youth, but all the quotations that refer to the youth are brought together in one book, and with other quotations, matching quotations from the philosophers or perhaps some big men or even some role models. They have been put nicely, and there's a beautiful book that's called the UCAT Bible. The UCAT Bible, it's also translated into Kannada, which means that our people of Kannada also can utilize in Kannada. And this book also can be given as a gift, first of all, to your own children. The parish priest can think of it, giving it to the children as gifts, since you are giving already as a Bible gift, but this would be a better offer. And also for the others, when you are wishing somebody, perhaps you can give a small book of the UCAT Bible. There is also Kannada, a Kaipidi Bible, Kaipidi book. There are also, for the children, very small children, the best thing is to give them what's called the Children's Bible. There are beautifully drawn, illustrated children's Bibles which the children will go through. Perhaps some figure will strike them and they will remember these pictures and these quotations or these small things much more than perhaps a big tome of Bible with small writings with small letters. And I'm suggesting that these kind of books can be given. They are available for sale. For example, the UCAT book, which is a solid book, cost about 500 rupees. The Kannada version cost about 200 rupees, UCAT Bible in Kannada. And then there are Children's Bible also, I think it's cost about 200. All are available here in Palana Bhavan in a stall called ATC, and you can buy them for your children. I now come to the question, a question which needs clarification. I shall read to you. The first question is, why do the churches insist on getting a baptismal certificate which is not more than 6 months old? The second question is, why the original certificate is not allowed to fulfill the requirement? Number 3 is, it's not easy to obtain a baptismal certificate, especially if someone is born and baptized outside India. So there are 3 questions. The first question is, why do the churches insist on getting a baptismal certificate which is not more than 6 months old? A certificate, perhaps it's a certificate, is a certificate. It can be, a certificate is called an extract of the exact writings about that event in the register. It's called an extract. For example, my baptism is written in a baptismal register book, the date, the name, my father, mother is called, and from there this is extracted in the form of a certificate. What is more important is, of course, the written document itself, and this is an extract. So we see that certificate has to be the normal protocol in every office, not only in the church offices or church matters, also in the government level also, that the certificate should be of recent origin. We can't take a 70 years old certificate, perhaps it could be taken as an original certificate, but people say that bring a recent certificate and the 6 months is the time. But in the Catholic Church, why do you need this 6-month certificate? Perhaps for other reasons also. One thing is it has to be updated, so therefore sometimes in the baptism certificate, which is of very old, let us say 10 years old, you had not received your confirmation. Perhaps that entry is in the column of the thing, it is not there. The last column is the entry of the confirmation. The entry of marriage, if you got married, and therefore this entry also is transferred. Therefore in 6 months time, we presume that these things, no new changes have been made, the other changes have been incorporated. But if you take a very old certificate, these entries may not be there. Secondly, 6 months, because some things may have changed. Some things may have changed. If you bring me a certificate of 5-year-old, perhaps the certificate is okay, but you may have left the church. How do I know? Or perhaps you may have crossed over to some other congregation or denomination. How do I know? So therefore, all these things, in order to be a recent origin, we request you to have a certificate of 6 months, which is relevant or topical and perhaps usable also in all our dealings and matters. So that's why we ask for a recent certificate. The second question about original certificate is not allowed to fulfill the marriage requirement. I fully don't understand this question, but perhaps it's in this way. Why do we ask for original certificate? The original certificate is, once again, it's because in order to see that no false entries or fake entries are entered. You know what we call the Xerox copies or the copy of the certificates work. When you copy, perhaps you can make a small correction and make another copy of it and present it to say that this is a copy of the original, but there may be changes. I remember when I was in a church, someone had, it was for the sake of pension, I think, or retirement or pension, something like that. A person had taken a certificate from us and he took a Xerox of it, made a correction. He was born in 1961, but he made it into 1967, and presented it to his department. Perhaps there was some discussion in the office. This man doesn't look that young, that he is born in 67. He is surely much older than that. And someone put an inquiry, and the court, I remember I had to go to the court and produce the original register to say that this is the register. In the register it was written 61. But this man had taken the copy of it and corrected and made another copy and made it 67. These things can happen. Therefore, we ask for the original certificate. I don't say that sometimes even original certificates can be corrected and we can be fooled also, but at least some precaution is there. And that is why we ask for the original certificates. The third question is, it's not easy to obtain baptismal certificate, especially if someone is born and baptized outside of India. Very true. Very true. That's why we say that for the same reason, if in India, in front of us, these fake things can be done, how much more when you are abroad? Perhaps if someone brings a certificate and says that I can't get an original certificate because I was born there, I can't bring it, I'll have to trust whatever certificate or copy that you produce to me. It doesn't look nice. Many a time we have seen also in our pastoral practice, many people have been bluffed. I know one of a marriage case where a person was married and he took the certificate of his which didn't show any entry of marriage, and he was almost preparing to get married in the second time in the church. But fortunately, someone brought this to our notice. We made an inquiry in that particular church abroad, and they said, no, the entry is there of marriage here. And that was enough for us to say that this man is cheating or bluffing. So that is why we insist. I understand it's sometimes troublesome, but this is in your interest. This is in your interest, so that any fake things, you are not fooled by any fake things and you don't get into trouble. We are all for you, and that is why we insist the original certificates, what we call the certificates that come even from abroad, if possible in the original form, or at least a letter from the authority there, that we certify that this particular certificate which is carried with this person is good. Something like that we need. And of course, as the first question says, it has to be of recent origin, at least 6 months of origin. Thank you very much. God bless you. May you have a good week ahead.
My dear friends, I'm sure you have witnessed the shepherd's voice which is being presented by our beloved Archbishop, Most Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, the Archbishop of Bangalore, who takes so much of interest and concern in order to bring the various topics, the contextual aspects, in order to inform, educate, and catechize all of us, the priests, the religious, and faithful of this vast archdiocese. And I'm sure you are enjoying this program, Shepherd's Voice, and I request each one of you to share with your other colleagues, friends, and family and relatives, near and dear ones, so that everyone in this archdiocese can be more closer to listen to the Archbishop on this Shepherd's Voice, the weekly feature. My dear friends, as I've always told, that this is a wonderful platform wherein we can connect to the shepherd of this archdiocese, wherein he brings in the interesting topics in order to increase our devotion and love towards God, and also to know the spiritual matters that concerns our faith. In a very special way, you are most welcome to ask your questions, queries, and you can send them to us at archdblr@gmail.com, and you will also see our mobile number in and through which you can connect with our media center, Ave Studios, and the Archdiocesan Communications Center. Please do write to us your feedback, your opinions. Thank you. Continue to watch and continue to share with others.